Hello and welcome to this recording of our presentation, which was given at the Ohio State University Wexner Medical Center's Assistive Technology Grand Rounds. This presentation was given on August 12th, 2020, and is a presentation on the Mobility Assistance for People with Cognitive Disabilities project. And what follows is a project description, preliminary findings, and clinical implications. So if you are watching this recording and are interested in learning more, we'd like to direct you to our website, which is u.osu.edu/smartcbus. And if you are there and after the end of this recording, if you are interested in filling out our clinical implementation research survey in order to help us better this project, we would be very appreciative. And so if you would like to point your phone at the QR code on this slide, or also on this slide, it will pull up the survey on your phone that you can take after watching this recording. So today, our research team will be presenting. Myself, I am Bethany Frick, and I am a recent graduate of the Speech Language Pathology Master's Program, and I'm a fourth-year PhD student in the department. Presenting along with me is Caitlin Coulter, a first-year doctoral student in occupational therapy, Liz Mance, who's also a first-year doctoral student in occupational therapy, and Ashley Stoikov, who is a third-year undergraduate in health sciences. And this project was completed with other members of the team who will not be presenting but who have contributed to this project. And they are Dr. Sarah Anderson, who is an occupational therapist and a second-year PhD student in health and rehab sciences, as well as Dr. Carmen DeJovene, an assistant professor, clinical professor, and director of rehabilitation, science, and technology at the Assistive Technology Center, and Dr. Sandra Metzler, who is an associate professor in the practice in mechanical and aerospace engineering department. So our primary objectives for today are to describe the individual performance skills necessary to successfully access and use public transportation, as well as describe the clinical implications of using the Wayfinder 3 app system within a community surface transportation system. And to meet those objectives, this is our outline for the presentation. I will be giving a project background and introduction to the project, and then Liz Mance will be describing the training educational program. Ashley Stoikov will be giving a comprehensive explanation of the Wayfinder system, and then Caitlin Coulter will be giving outcomes in the form of case studies and discussing the problems that our participants faced and how we overcame those individual needs. And then I'll be wrapping it up with some clinical implementation and implications and talking about what it takes to implement this into a person's own practice. And then we are very hopeful that you would help us in filling out the survey at the end. So I am going to jump into the project background and introduce the project. And I will do that through talking through the issue. We know that individuals with disabilities have difficulties accessing public transportation when traveling throughout the community. And they experience a range of barriers that can lead to a lack of safe and effective community mobility, despite the need for accessible transportation, as that is a critical component of overall health, well-being, independence, and employment opportunities. And so community mobility and the ability to access public transportation is a vital piece of independence. However, we know that in the United States, over 560,000 individuals with disabilities never leave their homes. And this is due in large part to transportation difficulties. And so just a brief overview before Ashley gives us a comprehensive look at the Wayfinder system. This issue of lack of community mobility led this team to find an innovative solution to address this large number of individuals with disabilities who don't have adequate access to public transportation. And one such solution can include an accessible app that can promote safety and independence while traveling. And so for this project, the Wayfinder system, along with the training educational program, offered several attributes that did just that. And so Ashley, like I said, will be discussing the components of the Wayfinder system much more comprehensively later. The general system contains 4 components to assist individuals with cognitive disabilities to navigate public transit systems. And those 4 components are the application itself, an online route builder for the travel partner or their support system, online route library or repository to catalog routes taken for future reuse, and the online trip tracker for the individual's travel partner or caregivers to use as the individual navigates the public transit systems. And then, of course, our piece of the training program for both the travelers and the travel partners, which Liz will be discussing later as well. As we're presenting today, we will be discussing 2 major groups of stakeholders who can benefit from this app and educational program. Obviously, of course, the travelers, which in this case and in this project are the individuals with cognitive disabilities, and then their travel partners, which we've included as any individual who's providing support to these travelers, such as primary caregivers, family members, community supports, or support staff. And the list is extensive, who can be a travel partner in supporting our travelers. And then a brief project overview. This will be discussed extensively by Liz next, but as a general outline of the project, clients who participated in this study progressed through 3 phases to complete the educational program. The initial assessment and intake discerned important information such as the level of support that the individual benefits from, their goals for community mobility, and their support systems. And then they progressed to phase 2, which required the participants to complete 4 separate trainings, a safety training, smartphone and a CODA training, and then a specific Wayfinder app training. And after each of the trainings, there was an assessment to ensure that the knowledge was gained, as well as task analyses to assess specific skills, and satisfaction surveys to determine the reception of the trainings as they progressed through them. And then in phase 3, the travelers and travel partners participated in focus groups and interviews to inform our implementation and the future implementation of this educational program, as well as surveys on the apps, satisfaction surveys, and task analyses on their access of CODA. All right, and now I'll pass it along to Liz to talk about the training program more comprehensively.
Thanks, Beth. Hi, everyone. So the training program that I will discuss is specifically referring to the travelers, who are those adults with cognitive disabilities within our study. The travelers underwent 4 different phases of training. This includes a safety training, a public transportation training, smartphone training, and the Wayfinder app training. The first training we will discuss is the safety training. So the safety training was the first training that the travelers partook in, and occurred before the traveler completed a first trip using the Wayfinder app. The overall goal of this training was to ensure that the travelers can safely use the app in their community and know what to do and who to contact if their well-being is in danger. Advice regarding social cues and interactions with strangers and the bus driver were highlighted throughout the training to ensure that the travelers were navigating in their community comfortably. Other topics such as how to stay in tune with their surroundings while using the app on their smartphone, how to exit and enter the bus safely, and meanings of transportation signs were also discussed throughout the training. The primary method of instruction for the safety training was a video series. This specifically contained 5 components. They were departing one's house, walking to the bus stop, waiting for the bus, entering the bus, and waiting for the bus at the arrival of or exiting the bus at the arrival of their final destination. And to make this training more interactive, the trainers would stop the video throughout and question the trainers, and the videos would also pose questions prompting the travelers to click on those correct answers before the videos continued. The assessment and feedback of the training included a training safety quiz in which the travelers had to score over 80% to pass and move on to the next training. The next training that we will explore is the public transportation training. Travelers also completed a public transportation training, also known as the Central Ohio Transportation Authority or COTA training. The goal of this training was to educate travelers on all public bus etiquette, including how to use a bus pass, where to sit on the bus, how to look at a map, how to pull the stop cord at their final destination, and how to look for their intended bus number. The training occurred at a COTA training facility, which allowed the travelers to engage in a bus simulation to practice using their local public transportation system in a safe and controlled setting. New travelers also watched the COTA training videos and were required to view the safety video before commencing the COTA training. The training session incorporated all of the learned skills in a controlled mock bus setting. Travelers then also completed a COTA training quiz and had to score over an 80% or higher to continue with the other trainings. And next, we have included an example video within a traveler's COTA training curriculum for you guys to watch.
To get to the nearest COTA bus stop, make sure you cross the street safely by waiting for the white walking man and crossing at a crosswalk. Sit on the bench at the bus stop to wait for the COTA bus, or if there is no bench, wait underneath the sign for the bus. Make sure you are dressed appropriately for the bus, like if it is a warm day, wear a t-shirt and shorts. Your bus will be clearly marked in the front of the bus and on the side of the bus with where the bus is going to and the bus number. When boarding the bus, if you need assistance, you can ask the bus driver to pull down a ramp to make it easier to get onto the bus. When you get onto the bus, swipe or insert your bus pass to pay for your ride.
She didn't stay long once I got in.
Oh yeah, but she was really nice. I'm just kidding.
If you are unsure of where to get off the bus at or need extra help, you can hand the bus driver an index card describing where you want to get off at and they can help you. For your safety, be sure to pay attention to your surroundings while riding the COTA bus. When you are about to reach your stop, pull the yellow cord to signal that the bus needs to stop. Once the bus has safely stopped at your stop, you may exit the bus.
Now we will discuss the next training, which was the smartphone training. To successfully use the Wayfinder app, travelers of the study must be trained on how to generally use the smartphone. The goal of the smartphone training was to confirm that the traveler can complete all the essential functions of a smartphone, like turning the phone off and on, opening and closing applications, making phone calls, and knowing meanings of different icons and buttons. The method of instruction was a PowerPoint presentation for this training with incorporations of different interactive components demonstrated on a smartphone. The assessment of this training involved a task analysis on how the travelers use specifically an Android smartphone after the lesson. Scoring of the task analysis was influenced by the Executive Function Performance Test, or EFPT, which entailed documenting types of cueing that the travelers needed to complete a function on the smartphone, and then afterwards a rating of their level of independence. Examples of cueing recorded were indirect verbal guidance, gestural cueing, direct verbal assistance, and physical assistance. Travelers had to complete every task before ending the task analysis to ensure their learned capabilities. The last training that we're going to discuss is the Wayfinder app training. The training focuses on the features and controls of the AbleLink Wayfinder application. The goal of the Wayfinder app training was to instruct travelers on how to use the app while using public transportation within their community. This included how to specifically start up the application, how to navigate within the app, and how to start and manipulate their GPS routes. The method of instruction was a PowerPoint presentation that was used for the program trainer to discuss each aspect of the program before the travelers tested out the Wayfinder app for themselves. The travelers were shown a training video demonstrating skills if troubles arise during their practice. An essential component of this particular training is using the app with a real bus route alongside a program trainer and a caregiver. The assessment will be performed also with a task analysis, and the travelers use this to show how they performed in a realistic simulation at the CODA training facility. The scoring of this task analysis was again comprised of that same cueing system based off the EFPT, as mentioned earlier, with addition of application-specific responsibilities such as how to use and navigate the app, and again, a scoring of their level of independence afterwards. Next, we have additionally included a shortened video on how the travelers can use the Wayfinder app.
To begin a route, open the Wayfinder app.
Welcome to Wayfinder. Tap on the picture that matches the trip you want to take.
Scroll down until you reach the route that you would like to take.
Tap one more time to open this route.
Click Start to go to the Carmack 2 parking lot.
You can then click the green Start button at the bottom of the screen to begin your route. If you are taking a route using the fixed CODA system, a time to the next bus will appear at the top of the screen. The Wayfinder app can be used to go on walking routes, driving routes, and bus routes. Each route can be customized to display written out instructions, an image of the location, as well as audio instructions.
Turn left on Kenny Road. Turn left on Kinnear Road. Continue on to Olentangy River Road. Turn right into the Target parking lot.
If you are using the Wayfinder app on a bus route, you can create a waypoint signaling when it is almost your stop.
Prepare to get off the bus. Your stop is next. This is the Herrick Transit Hub. Get off the bus.
Now that we went through the training program for all 4 phases for the traveler, Ashley will continue the presentation with specific details about the Wayfinder system.
Thanks, Liz. Hi, everybody. Will you flip the slide, please? So, like Beth said earlier, the Wayfinder system consists of 4 components, and they're the route builder, which is available either on the app itself or online, the app, which is available for Android or iOS devices, the repository or library, which is like a storage unit, and that's available online, and then the tracker, which is available on an online portal. So the first component we'll go over is the route builder. Like I said, the route builder is available either on the app itself or on an online portal. And the route builder allows a caregiver or travel partner to create customized routes for their traveler. And certain ways that they can make these routes customized is by having a certain number of waypoints. A waypoint is a significant location or like a landmark for while you're taking a trip. So in the video earlier, they had street signs as a waypoint. And some travelers like to have a lot of waypoints for more step-by-step instructions. Some only liked having one signaling them when they're about to have to get off the bus. There's also audio cues, pictures, and captions, which help make it easier to understand where you're supposed to be going. And then something else, after you build a route, you can upload or download a route to or from an online cloud. And that helps you access it again or move it from the online portal to the app itself. And then also on the route builder, you're able to edit routes you've previously created. And then here's a video highlighting the route building process. When you log into the home screen of the web-based route builder, all of your previously created or downloaded routes will be displayed. To create a new route, click New Route in the upper right-hand corner. You may title the route however you would like. To select a cover image for your route, click Grab Image or click on the compass to upload an image from your desktop. To place a waypoint, drag your blue pin anywhere you would like on the map. You may title the waypoint however you would like. Typical waypoint titles include the name of the bus stop or street or a written out direction. To insert an image for the waypoint, click Grab Image or the compass to upload an image. To record audio, click the blue Record button and speak into your computer's microphone. You can record audio cues for each waypoint or a general direction for the beginning of the route. When you are finished with your first waypoint, click New Waypoint and repeat the previous steps to add your second waypoint. When you are finished with your route, click Save Route in the upper right-hand corner. You will be directed back to the main screen where you can upload or download routes to and from either your desktop or the online cloud. Building routes on the app itself follows similar steps as a web-based portal and can allow for route building while traveling in the community in real time instead of pre-planning a trip online with a map. So then the next component that I'll discuss is the app itself. And so when you log into the Wayfinder app, it has a list of routes that have previously been created, as you can see in the first phone picture. So if you've already created a route, it will be easily accessible when you log into the app. There's also an ability to download routes from the cloud from the phone, or you can create your own routes on the phone itself, or you can edit routes that have previously been created. While you're traveling with the Wayfinder app, there's also a contact button. So if you need to come in contact with a caregiver while you're riding, it's easily accessible to contact them from the app without having to close out. And then the Wayfinder repository or library is a storage place for all the routes. And so the routes that have been created in the route builder, you can find them in the repository for future use. And there's both a public and a private storage component of this. So the public storage are code of fixed bus routes that have already been created. And then private routes are routes created for an individual or a group of individual. So in the case of this study, routes that our travelers or travel partners created would be stored in the private storage place. And then you can view it either in a categorical way as shown in the bottom picture, or you can look on a map and see which routes you have at different locations on a map. And this allows routes to be shared amongst Wayfinder users. So if somebody already had a route built for a place you wanted to go, you don't need to remake that. And then the last component is the Wayfinder tracker. And the Wayfinder tracker allows caregivers to track their traveler in real time while a traveler is taking a route with the app. When you log into the tracker, it will show you a complete list of routes on the dashboard with the most recent route on top of the screen. And then when you click on a route, it will let you see a map view of the route so you know exactly where your traveler currently is or where they have gone if it's a previous route. There's colored circles on the map, which represent different types of interactions with the app. These could include if a waypoint location has been passed or not passed, and if a traveler responded or did not respond to the notification that came up on their app by clicking the OK button. There's also interactions recorded, such as pausing a route, pressing the contact button, and going off route. These features on the tracker are important for outcome measures by showing how a user interacted with the app over time, which can be helpful to measure community integration. And then the tracker also has several features that could be looked at either on the route dashboard itself, or we have the ability to download a CSV file. And then these features include title of the route, elapsed time of the route, date and time of the route, trip type, so that's if the trip was a bus trip, car trip, or a walking trip, and then the end status, which is if it was completed, canceled, in progress, or preview, which preview mode is like practicing taking a route without actually going on it. And then to visualize how the Wayfinder app and tracker work, here's a video of a bus route being taken. On the main screen of Wayfinder, select the route you would like to take. This route will provide instructions step by step for the bus. As the traveler is riding the bus, the Wayfinder app displays notifications at significant locations on the route called waypoints. There's a tracking feature on Wayfinder so that a caregiver can track the traveler while they're taking the route with real-time tracking. In between notifications or waypoints, a bus logo will be displayed as you wait for the next waypoint to appear. Wayfinder also provides a notification telling the traveler when to get off the bus so they don't miss their stop. So next up, Caitlin will speak about some case studies highlighting the traveler's experiences with Wayfinder.
Thank you, Ashley. Good morning, everyone. I'm Caitlin, and today I'll be talking about the outcomes and case studies for the travelers of the Wayfinder study. So with the MAPCD enrollment, we have 37 travelers and 26 travel partners, totaling to 63 participants for this study. And looking into the traveler and travel partner dyads here, we're seeing that the two most common are going to be one traveler with no travel partner or one traveler with one travel partner. We've also seen cases of one traveler with multiple travel partners, such as moms, dads, sisters, etc. And then we've also seen cases of multiple travelers with a community specialist or multiple travel partners. So jumping right into case study one here. So case study one, who does he travel with? He travels alone. However, he does have a service coordinator who assists with communication needs. This service coordinator or communication coordinator does not mean that that's their travel partner though. Technically, this traveler does not have a travel partner. So the problem or issue that this first case was seeing is that they had confusion with public transportation. They took the wrong bus and got lost, and this created a lot of anxiety and stress for public transportation. So our team had constructed and supervised bus routes for this participant, and routes included to work and back from work as well as social activities. So a solution for this specific participant is we allowed for 3 practice routes to allow adjustment and comfort for them. And by this, we created repetitive phone directions to emphasize to the traveler that this is not your stop, so they knew when to get off or on the bus. The benefit to this for the traveler it allowed them to become less anxious while using public transportation, along with allowing them to become more familiar with themselves and public transportation, so they felt more confident. And a little update on this first participant here. The traveler feels as if they no longer need to use the app since public transportation has become more natural and easier to them. So this was a very positive experience for them because of all the practice they had with the Wayfinder app. They were allowed to feel more confident in their community to the point where they didn't need to use the app any longer. Next is our case study 2. So who does this specific traveler travel with? He typically travels with his coworkers and community specialists while on a bus. And that's what's so unique about this specific case study is because this traveler not only goes on a bus with a community specialist, but he also goes with coworkers. So the problem that this specific participant was seeing is that he had some visual impairments, and that made it very difficult to see the directions on his phone. So he really did rely on those audio cues. The traveler also wanted to be able to go more independently out into his community as opposed to, traveling with his mom or community specialist. So the route description in this case for this participant was to create a bus route to and from the grocery store, so he could do that on his own, but then also having a bus route to go to places like the mall with his community specialists and coworkers, so he's still getting that experience. For case study 2 solution, we ended up creating several audio cues, again, because of his visual impairment. Audio cues were crucial to his learning experience. An example of these audio cues would have been, "This is not your stop, stay on the bus." And we also enlarged text and added very familiar photos to him on the app, so this way he could have a little bit more than just those audio cues to work for him. This greatly benefited the traveler because they're able to travel more independently in their community. The audio cues allow the participant to know when and where to get off the bus, and again, this created a lot of self-awareness for the traveler, which made it easier for him to travel out into his community. So following with a traveler update, the traveler has become more comfortable with public transportation. However, he still takes supervised bus routes with family or his community specialists, but the Wayfinder app did come in handy for him to allow him to feel more confident when traveling outside just work. And finally, we have our case study 3. So who does she travel with? This participant mainly traveled with her caregivers, which is mom and dad. The problem that this traveler was seeing was that they had difficulty with social cues and bus safety. They had a hard time retaining new information, and they were very unfamiliar with riding the bus. This was a completely new experience for them. So the route description was specific safety trainings catered to the participant's cognitive level. We worked one-on-one with both the traveler and her travel partner or mom to make sure we can meet those training goals and safety needs. And we had her actually practice routes with a CABS Ohio State bus as opposed to just jumping on a COTA bus right away. This was a little easier for both the traveler and her travel partner because the Ohio State CABS buses are much smaller in terms of routes and they're not as intimidating to start off on. So the solution to this was modifying her trainings to suit her cognitive retention and ability, and create a more comfortable setting, which again is referring to proposing to start off on those OSU CABS buses as opposed to the CODA buses. So the benefit of this was to allow practice for her to adjust and become more comfortable with trainings before experiencing more real-world situations. It allowed this participant to kind of dip her toes into public transportation before fully going out into the community. And our final traveler update was this traveler has learned appropriate bus etiquette and social skills, but still predominantly travels with her parents or travel partners. One day, both she and her mom hope to have her travel on her own in short distances in her community. So though this was a very good experience for her and she learned a lot, they're just going to continue working on that practice and hopefully allow the traveler to go out into her community more independently. And now we will have Beth wrap it up with clinical implications.
Thank you, Caitlin. Now I'm going to spend some time talking about clinical implications and implementation that we've learned along the way of implementing this project. And so while we were working on this project, this study has employed methods to critically analyze how this educational program was implemented and the lessons we learned from the process. As such, we used a lot of methods drawing from the field of implementation science. Implementation science aims to improve the quality and effectiveness of health services through promoting the systematic uptake of research findings and other evidence-based practices into routine practice. And though it is separate from quality improvement and dissemination methods, implementation science shares a lot of characteristics that clinicians may be familiar with in their own personal and their company's practices. And just to briefly touch on this, likely the WHO ICF and the OT practice frameworks are familiar to most watching this recording. And really, though these models use different terminology, they're getting at the same idea, that the people that we are serving are at the center of what we're doing, but cannot be adequately served without considering the environmental and personal factors or the context and the environment that they're living in, and essentially considering the barriers and facilitators that may make one specific client a good fit for the Wayfinder app or not. And so I'm going to spend a little time discussing the clinical considerations and implications that may inform candidacy for implementing this into a treatment plan for one of your patients. For this project, we found that 4 general areas were highly influential in deciding this. And those 4 areas were individual characteristics, technology features and functions, the environment that the individual was in, and their community stakeholders. And so I'm going to spend a little time talking about each one of those. And one of the important pieces to consider while keeping these models in mind is how to determine a good candidate for this app and associated trainings. And so I'm going to spend some time looking at, like I said, all 4 of these factors: the individual factors, technology considerations, community stakeholders, stakeholder contributions, and environmental factors that we found all played a part as either or both a facilitator and or a barrier to determine if an individual was a good candidate. So looking at the individual factors that may serve as facilitators or barriers, performance skills as well as drive and motivation can be influential. Performance skills include both the person's physical abilities as well as their limitations in relation to accessing the public transportation. Another aspect that influences performance skills include the individual's cognitive abilities that can play a role in how independent the individual is able to be in navigating the complex public transportation system. Additionally, we found that a person's drive and motivation, both in terms of increasing their independence or their drive and motivation to travel by themselves in navigating this, again, complex public transportation system. And then also with how the technology fit with them. And in terms of their drive and motivation as well, could include their drive and motivation to go to specific places and seek out leaving their home to go to places in the community as well. Things to consider in terms of technology, specifically the fit of the Wayfinder system and its appropriateness for a patient. There are several aspects of the technology's function and features that can be facilitators or barriers again. More specifically, is the app usable by the patient? Can they learn how to navigate the system, or does it have the features that the individual needs? And if you think back to case study 2 that Caitlin discussed and how his visual impairment required ingenuity on the end of our research team and for his community stakeholders to make the app work for him. And provide those auditory cues. Continuing on, is it useful to them? Can they apply that knowledge of navigation to a real life setting? And thinking in this context, the complex public transportation system. And finally, is it desirable to them? Not only in terms of if they want to use public transportation, but do they want to use this technology and specifically this app? And then another factor to think about is the cost of the device, which I think is very unique to technology in that it can either be a barrier or facilitator. On one hand, it is cheaper than a dedicated device, absolutely, but certainly the fee for the app can be prohibitive for some families and some individuals as well. In terms of community stakeholders, these influential people can take many forms. Of them, an individual support system can include, but is not limited to, friends or families as primary caregivers, clinicians, staffs at day facilities, and other community supports. And in this next point, as you were likely thinking in terms of the aspects of the training protocol, caregiver support and resources can stand as a vital facilitator or barrier. And like Caitlin discussed in the case studies, each of the travelers that we worked with had a very unique community surrounding them, especially in terms of the ability and their willingness to help the individual. And what's most likely is the constraints that support individual may have on their own time to help the traveler in safely learning how to use the app and travel more independently. And then it goes without saying that the environment is especially important to the realistic possibility of implementing this into somebody's life. And so this is, I think Caitlin did a nice job of explaining these in her case studies as well. Environmental factors can include the physical environment, specifically things to consider of how far away is the bus stop from where they're living. Is there a sidewalk for them to safely travel to that bus stop? And as well as more global considerations of how that specific city or area's bus and travel function and work for the whole community. Another environmental factor can be social considerations of the outer setting, including, but not limited to, obviously, the bus driver's understanding or training and acceptance of their passengers' using assistive technology or other supports during their drives, as well as the social interactions of other individuals on the bus that are less easy to control, but definitely and certainly need to be accounted for. So all 4 of these factors overlay and contribute unique supports and challenges that can inform candidacy. In truth, even if one aspect indicates that this person may face barriers, there may be considerable protective factors in the other areas, such as a strong community stakeholder that is influential in ensuring that this training program and app works for that individual, that may make them still a good candidate. And also, as Caitlin highlighted with the case studies, I think that the biggest takeaway is that it takes a flexible model for this training program and this app to work for individual clients or patients. And it takes a clinician or a researcher that is ready and interested in solving problems as they arise to reduce those individual and environmental barriers and to increase participation. And moreover, this is just an initial list of possible considerations in determining if a patient is a good candidate for this educational program, as well as the Wayfinder 3 app. So just as a quick review, today we talked about the individual performance skills necessary to successfully access and use public transportation, as well as we described the facilitators of and barriers to using the Wayfinder 3 app within a community surface transportation system. So what we would like you to take away from this recording is that OTs play an integral role in supporting community mobility for individuals with cognitive disabilities. Of the many options to increase community mobility, assistive technology, and we argue that the Wayfinder app, offer a promising support in achieving that goal. However, a training program that comprehensively addresses personal safety, specifics of navigating public transportation, general smartphone navigation skills, and app-specific trainings are necessary pieces to successfully implementing this technology in a person's life. And lastly, due to the nature of the objective of increasing a person's independence, there are a number of factors that influence the success of the program. Of them, many are related to environmental, individual, technological, and community influences. And then once again, if you're interested in learning more about this program, we'd like to direct you to our website, the u.osu.edu/smartcbus. And there are a number of different social media sites for you to follow us and be engaged with the updates as this project moves forward. And again, we would like to take the time to thank you for your time watching this recording, as well as ask you to fill out our clinical implementation research survey. And so you can either follow the link, the www.go.osu.edu/wayfinder survey, or you can use a QR code and scan that, and it'll take you directly to the survey. These are our references, and if you have questions, please feel free to reach out to us, both on the website or through social media. And please don't forget to take our survey. On our website, we have some frequently asked questions and answers to those questions, but certainly if those questions aren't answered through that resource, we're more than happy and interested in engaging in a conversation with you with any questions that you may have.